All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We are 1 minute past the hour, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Desmond Banks. I'm an assistant teaching professor here within the Boise State University School of Public and Population Health. And we're delighted to have an amazing guest and presenter today, this afternoon, Ms. Kelsey Nelson, who is a senior specialist within our Boise State University Career Services Department. And today's presentation is titled Navigating Public Health Career Obstacles and Opportunities. Again, we're delighted. A few housekeeping rules. I would ask that you reserve your questions until the end of Ms. Nelson's presentation. However, please, throughout the presentation, so that we can kind of catalog questions and so that you don't forget, please feel free to enter them within the chat at any time during the presentation, and we'll make sure that those get answered at the end. So we ask that you keep yourselves on mute and save, coming off mute until it's Q&A time at the end. However, at any time throughout the presentation, please do feel free to put questions within the chat, and we'll make sure that those get cataloged and shared with Ms. Nelson so that she can answer those appropriately. All right, without further ado, Ms. Nelson, over to you.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for having me today. I am going to go ahead and share my screen. And can I get like a thumbs up in the chat or something just to make sure that, oh, I see. Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. I am very excited to get to be here today to chat a little bit about navigating public health career obstacles and opportunities. A little bit about me before we present. I work at Boise State University, so I serve as the internship coordinator for the School of Public and Population Health, and I also work for Career Services where I get to support work around integrated career education. I've been in higher education for coming up on 9 years now, and I'm really passionate about helping other people feel a little bit more in control of a process that is very hard to feel in control of. So I was very excited to be invited to speak with you all today. So as we get going, I have a few poll everywheres just so I can get a little bit of an understanding of who's in the room today. So if you wouldn't mind, please going ahead and responding. You can either respond via text, but I actually find using the QR code is very helpful on the screen. And then we should see some results here. You can submit multiple answers as well. Perfect. We've got some students. A lot of students, some community members here. And you can select multiple options. Oh, I see people in the chat as well. We've got some students. Wonderful. We'll give it just another minute and then we'll go on to the next question. Beautiful. Okay. 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 Perfect. Okay, let's move on to the next question, friends. Okay, so looking at obstacles and opportunities in public health careers, what thoughts or feelings come to mind about this? So this could be something related, this could be like a singular word, could be a phrase. What comes up when you're thinking about this? Okay, so some people say exciting. I like it. Broad communication, insurance, companies. I'm loving this. So you're seeing a lot of different industries here, different organizations. What about competitive? Yes, legislation, rural. Oh, I'm loving this. Information, government, stress. Okay, seeing that as well. Fleeing, future. Okay. Thank you all so much for continuing to put these in. Seeing broad and competitive, yes. Interesting. Are there any other feelings that come up when you think about this? Lessening, worry, anxiety, yes, very valid. Very valid, friends. Okay. Opportunity, yes. And seeing some more in the chat. Overwhelming as well, yes, most definitely it can be. And I wanted to throw this in here just to show that if you have this feeling, somebody else has this feeling. And that is just in this Zoom room of 50, right? There can be a lot of challenges that come with careers in general. And so I wanted to kind of just get a little pulse in the room, see how people are feeling, but also show you that if you're feeling a certain way, somebody else in the room also does. Now, here's our last poll everywhere question. What lingering questions do you have about career challenges and opportunities in public health? So it could be broad, specific. What qualities do recruiters look for in an applicant? Good ways to get your foot in the door for public health. Will I be able to succeed? How to navigate highly politicized public health environments. These are wonderful questions, friend. How can I create the position I want that doesn't exist yet? When should you start applying for jobs before graduation? Great questions. What jobs are out there? So what I will do, friends, is with all of these questions, if they don't get answered today, I have, and I'll give you a QR code in just a second, but I have a resource packet. So what I will do is I will catalog these questions, and I need like a day or two, but I will get these questions with some resources on that packet. So you at least have somewhere to go for next steps. How to find public job or public health job within healthcare settings. There's a lot of wonderful questions here. A lot of wonderful questions here, friends. Finding networking opportunities, resources. Yes, where to start. Okay, thank you all for taking the time to answer those questions. It helped me quite a bit learn more about your needs as we go into this presentation, and let's go ahead and continue. So, current trends in the job market with public health. I have been continuing to do research, and actually, there were even more reports that had recently come out in the last few days. And so, just a few things that came up as I was looking. So, healthcare added 34,000 jobs per month in 2025. So, there were some additions, but that has slowed since 2024. Additionally, proposed CDC funding for FY26 has reduced 53% compared to FY24. We also have layoffs that have been happening, political changes, structural changes, barriers to work. Friends, there's a lot going on, as you all know, and it's not the first time that there have been changes in the job market, right? You've got, as far back as I can come up with right now, thinking about the Industrial Revolution, agricultural shift of the 1900s, Great Recession in 2008. Additionally, public health is not the only industry that's being impacted in this moment. There's also with AI becoming more prevalent, how that is impacting a lot of computer science fields as well. These changes are seemingly happening everywhere, and it can be very stressful. Now, in the midst of all the stress, it often feels like there's an expectation about what careers should look like. Um, this as an example, right? I don't know if any of you have ever thought about this, but I know I had an expectation that, okay, I'm going to get a degree and then I am going to graduate and it's going to be as straightforward as possible. When really, I would argue, at least for myself, it has looked more like a roller coaster at the world's best amusement park. So you've got some ups, some downs, some twists and turns, and sometimes it even feels like this. In the chat or with reactions, has anyone ever experienced anything like this before? Seeing some yes. Yep. Some thumbs up. 100%. And these twists and turns can be mild, they can be um, larger than that. It really just depends. And I don't want to throw this out here for like doom and gloom reasons, but I want to help show you that this happens, right? This happens. And it's if it's something that you're experiencing currently, you're not the first one. Someone said it's the opposite. I'm going back to school after different careers. I would argue that that is one of those twists and turns, right? You've learned about yourself, you've learned about opportunities, and decided to go back to school to continue your career. Like, it's not always as linear as I think the expectation that we have, like on ourselves and on others, is. And in my opinion, it's a completely unreasonable expectation to think that your path is going to be linear when there's so many factors that are out of your control. right? I wish everyone's path was straightforward, right? That would be wonderful and that would make things so much easier. And the world is wild. Things change, things shift. You learn things about yourself, you learn things about things that you want in a career. Sometimes there are funding shifts, sometimes there's a promotion, whatever it is, there's so many external factors that come into play. And I want to throw out the idea that how can you be expected to have a linear career path when there are so many factors that are impacting that path? There's actually a career counseling theory around this. I believe it's called planned happenstance theory. So it's shifting focus of career paths from being fixed to career paths that are centered around kind of the unplanned events, unplanned opportunities that come up. Inevitably, the ups and downs are always going to happen, right? This can feel isolating. On top of it, uncertainty can impact work and personal well-being. 54% of US workers stated that job insecurity in 2025 had a quote significant impact on their stress levels. Either in the chat or with reactions, does job uncertainty, has that ever impacted any of your stress levels or anything related to jobs or careers? I'm seeing a few people. Yeah. Yep, I'm seeing a lot. Yes, it can be a lot, friends. And I again, I share this because I want you to see that you're not the only one experiencing this right now. In career services at Boise State, we have about 2,000 appointments a year, and I recently pulled our data for the previous calendar year. And of those 2,000 appointments, we had 40% of them alumni, right, who still wanted support after they graduated. We had about another 40% around career counseling. So, how someone can find careers based on their meanings, values, that type of thing. A lot of job search as well. If it ever feels like you're alone and you're the only one navigating it, just know that there are a lot of people with you also navigating it. So, today's presentation, I wanted to discuss some of the components of job search careers, what you can and can't control, discuss some strategies for self-reflection that can help in this process, as well as application strategy and resources. So, this QR code right here is the one I was referring to a moment ago. This is the one that you can refer to. I have the links from this presentation in there, and I will take also any of the resources that like may come up in the conversation or ones that are applicable to the questions that you have. I will take those and put them in that document in the next few days. So, that being said, let's talk about what we can and can't control in this wild process. Has anyone ever seen a diagram similar to this? Maybe I'm seeing a few people. Yes. Okay. So, circles of concern, influence, control based off of Stephen Covey's framework. Now, this framework can be applied to a lot of different circumstances, but right now I want to use this as a framework to discuss careers today. Now, in jobs and careers, in terms of what you can control, there's so much. There are things like how your application aligns with the job, right? How you target your application towards each job, your interview preparation, your attitude, organization, your willingness to ask others for help, your self-talk, setting time aside for yourself. All of those things are things that you can control, and I'm sure there is more that we could come up with. Next, there are things that you can influence. Maybe it's asking for referrals at organizations. Of course, that is no guarantee that you'll get a job, and at the same time, you never know if that could impact somebody viewing your application. Maybe doing informational interviewing for networking purposes. I like to say the energy you bring into an interview room, right? Interviewing can be daunting, and also you have no idea how the other people in the room are going to engage with you, but you can control the energy you bring in. But also cultures within your team, within your cohort. What energy are you bringing in for others as you're engaging? And then additionally, we've got the circle of concern, right? So if I can't influence or control it, what are the things I can accept? Um, I am seeing things on here like hiring timeline. Who else applies? Ghosting from recruiters, I don't know if any of you have ever experienced that, but it's infuriating. Budget constraints, funding constraints, all of those things can not only impact the job search, but also your ability to do your work. Bureaucracy. Um, has anyone ever navigated any of these circumstances? Maybe in the chat, if there's anything else we can add to this list. I'm sure there's a ton, but it can be very frustrating. And at the end of the day, I want to convey that accepting does not mean, like, accepting what you can't control doesn't mean that what's happening or happened is okay, right? Um, Ghosting from recruiters, for example. I wish I could change that. I wish I could change that. Sometimes it happens. It's not okay. And my job is not to change the system because otherwise things would be a lot easier on candidates. But accepting purely is there to help you determine where to put your energy, right? Your energy is so precious, and understanding these circles as it relates to anything jobs, career-wise, can help you understand with the precious time you have what energy you can invest in. You can have the best interview of your life and not get selected, and you can have an interview that doesn't meet your expectations and get hired. Sometimes it's confusing, sometimes it doesn't make sense. And at the end of the day, understanding where those circles of influence, concern, control are can help you use this energy as wisely as possible. And I'm not here to imply that anything I say will flip a switch and everything is like you no longer have stress about what you can't control. That's not what I'm trying to convey. But I want to kind of propose this approach to see if it's something that can maybe help you feel a little bit like have a little bit more agency. Now, let's talk about self-reflection. This is a very broad topic. However, it's something that, as it relates to job search, career search, applications, it is something that I would say is necessary to a certain extent. And it's not just thinking about your day, but I want you to entertain this as a process of evaluating your experiences, your responses to things, your emotions, so you can identify patterns, so you can have a better understanding of how you are navigating the things around you related to jobs and careers. And the reason I wanted to include this in the presentation was because regular reflecting is a way to ground yourself, right? When things get challenging, thinking about what you can control can be very helpful. So one way I kind of like to think about this is the three whats. So if something comes up, thinking about what happened, what was my reaction? So what? So like, what does this tell me about myself? And then now what? How does this inform my next move? Um, like I mentioned, that's self-reflection can force you to take a pause. So you've got emotional regulation this can help you with, right? It can help move your reaction or move you from your reaction to your next steps. Also identifying the why. So it can help you distinguish, like maybe situational exhaustion. So like maybe I'm thinking like in the workplace, maybe it's like I need a vacation versus systemic misalignment, right? Of this no longer aligns with my values, or this role no longer fits me. There's also reclaiming that agency. So you can't control a lot of things. I'm thinking 2020 with the pandemic as an example, but things like reflection can help remind you of what you can control. And then also data for the future, right? It can help you inform future decision making. Maybe that's things related to your boundaries, or maybe that's decision making around what jobs to look for. I also advocate for getting any of this reflection out somewhere, whether it be on paper or in a notepad, a document on your computer, whatever it is, especially as it relates to careers. There's so much that people often have to think about, whether it be their basic needs, or maybe thinking about, I have to spend this energy looking at an application. Oh, I have to look at the mission and values of this organization, whatever it is. That stress staying internal can sometimes lead to that rumination. So I really want you to think about where you can offload that and get things documented. Additionally, those are the places that, at least from my experience, people often find an opportunity for future job applications, if that makes sense. So, reflection, I would say, is one of the hardest parts about, that's involved with applying for positions. And if you have things documented, you can look back and be like, oh, yeah, I was really proud when I completed this one work task, right? And that's information that can be used to inform your job search, resumes, cover letters, interviewing, whatever it may be. So I've got some reflection questions I want you to think about. There's so many. There's so many for so many different circumstances, and we could spend all day talking about them, but here's just a few. What task this week felt like a heavy lift, not because of the workload, but because it didn't feel meaningful? But which task gave me a second wind? What three words fuel my work? If a colleague I respected was facing the exact same obstacle I am right now, what advice would I give them? What is one skill I've used this month that I want to lean into more? What's one skill I'm using daily that I'd be happy to never use again? Does my calendar reflect my values? So if you are really motivated by, I don't know, working in the community and your calendar is more of meetings, it's something to think about. And then what did I do this week that made me feel proud? This is one that I find to be the most challenging. Like if you asked me that, like I know I would need a second to think about because oftentimes we don't put our accomplishments as the first thing, right? In our heads about ourselves. So all of these questions are in that packet. But if you ever need more, let me know. We've got a ton of them in my office. Okay, next, I want to talk application strategy. The reason I wanted to throw this in here is because I know a lot of people, whether they be students or community members that are on the call, might be applying for positions at some point. So I thought it could be good to chat about applications in general. Now, the reason I'm focusing on how applications are reviewed in this case is because so much of the application development process, so your resumes, cover letters, whatever it may be, can be informed by how applications are reviewed. So I thought it was worth touching on. Now, what we're going to chat about in this section is general. It is not specific to healthcare and public health. Oh, someone said, can you post the QR code at the end? Yes, I will. That's on the last slide, so definitely. So it's not necessarily specific to healthcare and public health because so often application processes are dependent on a department, right? Sometimes individual departments can decide how their applications are reviewed. Sometimes it is more at the upper levels of an organization how they decide. So this is more of a general idea of how applications can be reviewed, so you can inform your decisions as you move forward. So regardless of the review system, regardless of the application, it is in your best interest to use as many words from the job description as possible. Now, I don't mean picking and choosing random words, but I mean using their vocabulary for that industry, that organization, as much as possible. As an example, um, if I were to apply for a position at a corporation or maybe in the community, I would use when I work with faculty, instead of saying faculty, I might say stakeholders, right? You want to use their vocabulary as much as possible because the person on the other side might not know your experience, right? Even if it's a recruiter, maybe it's at an organization, like a public health organization, but it's a recruiter reviewing it, right? Sometimes that recruiter might not have the same discipline specific insight. So it is your job as the candidate to do as much as you can to help them see how you can do that position. Now, you never know what the rubric is. You never know what that rubric looks like. You never know how strict that rubric is followed. So, but generally it falls into somewhere on this spectrum. So sometimes there's a quick 6-second review. And this can happen if there is an organization that maybe does a first screening before sending it to the hiring manager. I have a former coworker who used to work at a national organization. Sometimes she would show up at the workplace and they'd say, I need you to review 200 resumes by 2 p.m. How do you do that? Right? So what you have to do is do a 6-second review and you say, okay, am I reviewing this candidate again later? Yes. 6-second review. Am I reviewing this candidate later? No. It is a quick screening to get your resume from person one to person two. Now, the next screening that can happen is a manual review. I wish every application process started with this, but sometimes it's not feasible. So, this is when somebody has all the time in the world. This is when they are doing a more thorough review of applications. They're spending a lot of time on it. Reviewers are really carefully considering the qualifications and the experience. And then one that has had a lot of people talking the last few years, especially, is using ATS, applicant tracking systems. Has anyone ever heard like AI kicked out my resume or how do I get past AI? Anyone? I'm seeing a couple head nods, thumbs up, thumbs down, yay, nay. Okay. 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 I want to demystify this a little bit. Um, But what this is, ATS, when you hear it, it is software used by companies as effectively like at baseline, it is a digital filing cabinet for recruiters. And also, I think it's important for me to mention that this is information based, for January 2026. We could chat in a year. Things could look a little different, but in this moment, this is what it looks like. But it's a digital filing cabinet, essentially. So it can be used to track candidates through the hiring process. So it would be um, applicant submits the application and then it gets moved on to the application review phase and then interview, so on and so forth. It can be used to organize applications. You can use it to post job listings, send communications with candidates. And there are some, I repeat, some, not all, that use it to help with the screening process. Um, Again, it's some, not all. You don't know if they use it or not unless the recruiter says they do, which is not something that they often publish, but it's something like you may hear from like a news article, right? Um, but if they do, if they use it to help with screening, what happens is you upload your resume and then the applicant tracking system puts your content into a searchable profile. So it parses it. So it allows recruiters to effectively do a control F search on your application and other applications. So it's not making decisions, but it is identifying those words and phrases. Um, Now, sometimes resumes can't parse. So, for example, if you use images, it can't do anything with images. If you use Canva as of right now to make your resume, Canva, when a rich text file is rendered, it doesn't necessarily do so accurately. Again, talk in a year. Like we could see what that looks like. But as of right now, sometimes using those types of platforms can make it really difficult for an ATS to parse. Maybe use a font that's not really readable. But basically, what happens is if you have parsing failure, your profile shows up with missing fields. I put in here that the fanciest design will never matter more than the quality and relevance of your content. Put a little asterisk here if anyone is in like a graphic design field, which I don't think so with this audience, but I thought it was worth noting that if there's something where you need to be showing your design skills, they're probably going to be reviewing it manually. So you're going to be using your own design platform for that. But for most applications, you want to make sure that your quality and your content is what is present. To navigate these systems, tailor your resume, use the job description as a guide, show impact, so quantify where you can, right? If you have managed newsletter communications, how many people are in the audience? What platforms do you use to do so? Simple formatting, you don't need to get too fancy. And then also networking, which someone had asked a question about networking, and we'll talk about some strategies for that. But talking to people at the organization because you never know if they have an internal referral system that could be used. Sometimes people will say, AI rejected my resume. Really, as of right now, it doesn't necessarily auto reject, but what it does is can help sort. So it's not the applicant tracking system rejecting you, it's going to be a recruiter. And also, if you are immediately rejected, it's usually because of timing. So I've seen that before sometimes where it just happens to be you're applying when they're already like transitioning another candidate after they've accepted a role. Also, sometimes with work authorization, that is a question that sometimes can immediately kick people out, and that's a question on, excuse me, on the application, not from your resume. Now, I've been asked, can an applicant tracking system to be set up to automatically reject based on content. Yes, but I know of two lawsuits going on right now involving AI bias in hiring. So I'm not saying this is out of the world of possibility. And at the same time, right now, there are lawsuits going on regarding this. So if you are applying and you're getting no response, it's probably not the applicant tracking system. It could be you don't meet the requirements. It could be that your resume doesn't show that you're qualified. So consider how your resume tells the story of how you can do that position. Maybe you're up against other applicants, stronger applicants. Again, something you can't control, but then also timing. What you have to do is you have to help them understand how your experience meets their needs. So the most successful applications are the ones that show the overlap between how you know you can do the job and what you've done in the past, and then what the employer needs. Don't let them guess. Sometimes they're not legally allowed to guess. For example, if I am looking for a specific software and I have a rubric, and if like I know a candidate can use it because I've worked with them before, I can't make that same assumption for other candidates, right? So I can't necessarily indicate that that candidate can use the software, right? It is your responsibility as a candidate to do as much as possible to help to convey how you can do the job. Um, is this a lot of work? Yes. And that's why really focusing on the what you can and can't control is really important here, friends. Finding a system that works best for you to maintain as much energy as possible, while also doing your best to hit that Venn diagram here. Um, Using their vocabulary as much as possible is important. Conveying in the cover letter how you're drawn to the organization's mission can be important. I encourage you to make your resume a targeted advertisement, not a professional autobiography. That's really important because they may not have time to read 3 pages of your experience. So doing what you can to have the things that are most relevant on your resume is important. Especially for those of you that are students right now. Include academic projects on your resume, include classes, any work projects you have, things like that that are relevant to the position are important. Now, remember, you get to decide relevancy. I encourage you to not undersell yourself, but then also um, don't let them make assumptions. So if you are wanting to include a specific class on your resume because it gave you information about a certain topic, make sure they know that, right? Make sure they know maybe through the cover letter, or maybe through a project listed on your resume. Make sure that they understand why you are putting things on your resume. And then also, again, quantify where possible. Okay, next, I want to chat a little bit about some resources that are available. One that can actually be really helpful is using AI to improve your application materials. So, for those of you who might be looking for opportunities that, like maybe you're currently working in public health, but there's an organization like a nonprofit that you're interested in that, like, you know that you can do the job, but you may have to translate your skills a little bit. You can use AI to see how your current experience aligns with that position, right? A prompt, you could say, I'm going to provide my resume and a job description. Please show me how exactly my skills overlap with what they're looking for. Suggest how I can rephrase my experience to use the same language found in the job description. There's a lot of potential there. Now, I do want to throw some caveats in with using AI for your materials. First off, if you are too vague, it's going to create a generalized response, right? Especially with cover letters. I have seen this before quite a bit where the cover letters aren't in the person's voice. Um, and so you want to make sure that they are as intentional as possible. For example, with a cover letter, and actually the resource packet has a link to AI and career development, so you can click that and see some of these examples. But for a cover letter, maybe put in previous cover letters you've done so it can see, so the AI can I say read it for your voice. Maybe ask yourself some questions about why you're interested in the position, why you know you can do it, how you're connected to the mission and organization, and then use that to help create some drafts. You can use AI to analyze your resume and see how you could maybe rearrange it for different positions you're applying to. Um, Especially if you are applying to a lot of positions, using AI can be a really nice way to help take some of the like mental lift off of the applications. You just want to make sure that you do so as intentionally as possible. LinkedIn is another thing that can be very helpful. For Boise State students, you can actually connect with alumni through LinkedIn. You can leverage these connections to find opportunities. If you are interested in a specific organization, even out of state, you can search for staff members at like for people employed at that organization, and you can see if any of them are fellow Broncos. And then maybe you reach out and um, ask about why they like working for that organization. You can leverage the fact that you are both a part of the same Boise State network to maybe get more information about the job or get connected. I've seen students do this if they're moving as well, so they find a Boise State alumni in the area they're going to and see if they can get connected. You can also reach out to recruiters, which I think is very helpful. You can follow recruiters. A lot of recruiters will post jobs regularly. So if there's an organization you're looking at, follow some of the recruiters and they'll be most likely posting positions. Let's say you apply to a position though, and you find a recruiter on LinkedIn for that company. You could say, "Hi, this is my name. I applied to this position. If your schedule allows, would you be open to a brief informational interview? I'd love to learn more about why you like working there and the challenges you're looking for this new hire to address." You never know. I'm not saying it's guaranteed that they'll follow up and say yes, and at the same time, you never know. Additionally, there are a lot of great LinkedIn groups that are available, a lot specific to public health, a lot specific to healthcare as a whole. I mean, you could do a search and there's, I would guess, probably some sort of group related to it. In a lot of these groups, there are people having conversations about the industry, about what's going on in the industry. I've seen people in some of these groups post jobs. So they're like, oh, hey, I have a job at this organization. Maybe you look at that job description, even if you're not applying, you're kind of making a note of, oh, why is this interesting? Why is it not interesting to me? And kind of just taking a note of that, maybe writing it down to help your future job search. Um, you can do informational interviews as well with people from LinkedIn. So maybe there's somebody in this group that, I don't know, works on something that you're interested in. Maybe you reach out and ask for an informational interview to learn more about why they chose that path. Or maybe if there's somebody in a specific type of position you're looking at, doing an informational interview to get advice. You never know what that could lead to, but I think informational interviews especially are um, a really great way to network and quote unquote get your foot in the door. Additionally, career services has a lot of resources available. So, most of the resources are publicly available on our website. Um, if you are an alumni or a student, you get career counseling appointments, but we have resources related to career planning, decision making, job search, personal branding. We have over 80 downloadable resumes. We have them for discipline. We have them that are general. We've got a couple CV examples as well. We are constantly looking to build out, like, we're looking for opportunities constantly to build out these samples, but it can be a good way to help get inspiration about what other people put on their resumes. But also, what's nice is you can download them straight to your Google Drive to make it easier to get started. We have information on interviewing, career and job market research, salary negotiation, AI and career development. There's a lot on there to get started. And if there's one that you're interested in and you can't find, let me know. My email would be available and I'll see what I can do. Now, in closing, it can feel overwhelming, and that's because it can be, right? But I want to convey you're not the first person, not the only person who's ever navigated any questions or concerns about jobs and careers. And I really want to emphasize that there are resources available. There are people here to help. Literally, my job is to support people with things like this. And so I guess I just want to convey, please don't hesitate to reach out. Now, we have 20 minutes. Here's that QR code. So I'll leave it on the screen for a second. But I thought we could use this as a chance to get some questions answered. Maybe we go through some of these resources. What would be most helpful for you all in this time?
Yeah, that's a great presentation, Kelsey, and I'm sorry I missed the first 10 minutes. So if I
Yeah.
missed this question already, I really apologize. I was running back from, or this topic already, I apologize. I was running back from class. But, I think I'm hearing a lot from students right now who are just really overall freaked out about the job market, and they're applying a lot of places and they're just not getting anywhere.
Yep.
Um, or they're maybe taking positions that they didn't feel like they were going to be taking when they got out of grad school or
Yep.
and perhaps undergrad. So I don't really know that I have a question, but could you maybe speak to that or kind of what you're seeing right now or what the landscape looks like?
Definitely. I mean, it's definitely challenging and within the career development space, especially at universities, like the LinkedIn groups I'm in or like my colleagues at other institutions are saying the same things, right? It is just plain challenging. And I wish it wasn't, of course. What if for somebody who is not finding positions or they're applying and not hearing back, the first thing I ask is, okay, what does the application look like? How targeted is it? Like, what are the things within the control of the applicant? Second off, we would chat a lot about, or some with maybe a member of my team, one of our career counselors, probably discuss um, next steps, maybe discuss or look at like job market research. In terms of the expectations of, the jobs you think you're or your hope you're going to be able to get after graduation. A little personal anecdote. I was one of those students. I studied biology and I thought I'm going into research and I did for a little bit and then I realized it wasn't for me. I was laid off, fell into higher ed, here I am. But I know that, I mean, personally, that was one of the biggest challenges for me is like, no, I should be doing this because I know other people who had this opportunity and because I'm not doing this, then I've done something wrong and it's real and it's valid and um I guess I just want to convey that um we have people on our team to talk to about this if any students or alumni are interested. Several of them have counseling degrees because it can be just very difficult. But we've had 40% of our appointments last year were alumni. It's a lot. And because it's unfortunately something a lot of people are navigating right now, especially, as an example, I know there are a lot of people in the computer science field who went into the field with more job security than they have right now. And that's hard. I'm thinking a lot of healthcare workers during the pandemic. We had a lot of alumni that I'm speaking to some of the ones I met with that were nurses and respiratory therapists, and saying this is not what I graduated into. Um, and so, yeah, I guess I just want to convey that something as straightforward as a resume or cover letter um, can really come with a lot of feelings and challenges and emotions. So, if anyone is experiencing that, whether if you're a Boise State alum or student, schedule an appointment with us. If not, send me an email and I can see like if there are resources I can do to support. Does that kind of answer, Sheila? Yeah? Okay.
That's great. Thanks so much. I certainly don't expect you to solve the job market right now, but I'm just kind of just
Right.
curious to hear what's out there. So yeah, thank you.
It's hard and we're seeing it a lot with a lot of different industries. Additionally, federal employers or employees over the last year. And it's so hard to predict and it's so hard to kind of keep a pulse on everything. And that's why really at least when I'm working with people trying to emphasize what you can and can't control, not to invalidate the stressors and invalidate the frustration that comes with this process. It's really just that conservation of energy. Like, okay, what can we do in this moment? Um, you know, as we navigate it. It's hard. What else, friends? I know there are questions. Come on. None? Um, what platform do you recommend for building a resume? I actually don't recommend a platform other than like Google Docs or Google Drive. So let's pull up some resume samples here. I'm going to share my screen. The reason why I'm recommending Google Doc or Word is because if um, your application is going to go through an applicant tracking system, I find it is the easiest, or from what I've heard at least, it's the easiest for that text to be rendered in the system. So we have a bunch of resume samples here. There's a health studies public health one as an example. Um, so you'll see a lot of different examples on here and that webpage. You can look at other disciplines as well. Like it doesn't have to be specific to your discipline because maybe there's a format on another one that you really like. But what you can do is you can click this link and download a copy, and then it will go to your Google Drive. And then um, you can go from there. So I would suggest Google Docs, Microsoft Word. Those tend to be the ones that unless you're in a graphic design field, I would suggest starting here. Somebody asked, I know there's a local small business organization, maybe City of Boise, that gives classes and helps people to get their own business started. Oh, do you partner with them or have any resources who want to work ourselves, create our dream job, or not working for another organization? That is a really good question, Elizabeth. Um, I am thinking you're talking about Trailhead, maybe. Um, Let me see. I don't think so. Career services. Oh, go ahead.
Um, it might be the Small Business Development Center.
Yes. Okay. Let me see. I personally don't know of my office working with them. However, if you'd like, I'm more than happy to connect you with our employer relations team because there's a chance that, yeah, that's it. Um, Good call, Dr. Schaefer. I have not. However, if you'd like, I can get you connected with our employer development team, and maybe they have. It's a good question though. Okay, what else, friends? I know there are questions. You mentioned so many at the beginning. Anything?
Can I ask one really quick?
Yes, please.
Okay, so my question is, it's so often that we hear that going into healthcare is a very secure field to go into, and that there's always things open. Why is it difficult to get a job? I mean, I know that we're working oftentimes through large organizations, and sometimes things can slip through the cracks, but I do often wonder if it is so secure and there's always opportunities and always openings, why is it a challenge to get a job?
That is a great question and one that I think we could spend a long time talking about. I not to single out Dr. Schaefer, Dr. Banks. I know both of you are on the call, so I'd be curious what your thoughts are, or anyone on the call that is navigating this. Um, I know, you're mentioning of like this is a secure industry to go into. I feel like it's all relative, and I know that when I was graduating from undergrad 10, 11 years ago, yeah, healthcare I was told was secure, computer science as well, and now 11 years later, um, I am not the authority on it, but it sure doesn't feel as secure as what I was once told. I know there's a lot of variability around it, whether it be from funding, right? We mentioned funding cuts right now, and although that is like impacting something in this moment, how that impacts security overall is to be determined. How is security evaluated, right? I don't personally don't know of an authority that has like that is the singular authority around what is considered secure or not, which makes it challenging. I know right now there are a lot of funding cuts. I know that with like pandemic era funds being rescinded, that impacts job availability. Dr. Banks, do you have anything to add on that?
Kelsey, the only thing to add is I think rubber stamp something you said earlier. This is literally the wild, wild west.
Yep.
I mean, in my, professional career, within public health, I've seen nothing like it. And I'll
Yep.
just use the example. We had approximately, when I was coming up, during my doctorate, getting a, government job, that was kind of one of the highly sought off things because of the pay and also the word to do meaningful work on a national scale. Within this past year, excuse me, I think the current number is about 240,000 individuals within the federal work service are no longer relieved, have been relieved of their duties or voluntarily or involuntarily no longer working with the federal government within areas of public health, or just, overall federal government. And so what that does is that, one, those dream careers, are gone. I mean, I've been monitoring this for a while since that termination. Usually when you go on USA Jobs, you'll see, a plethora of positions open within public health. Literally for months, there's been literally nothing at the CDC, which is unheard of. I've never seen that in my entire life. So you have that, but also you have a lot of, so I'm coming out of, undergrad, even grad school right now without a strong resume in public health. Because those individuals have been left dismissed from the federal service. Now I'm competing with someone with an MD, PhD, and a 20 or 30 year public health history. How can an undergraduate, someone who just graduated, compete with that? Right. So you have that aspect, but even within the federal government, there are certain offices that are even the subject of, health equity. That's taboo. That's been completely, removed. So the Office of Health Equity, where I did a lot of work, has been gone. CDC, other parts, but then there's certain departments, within just insider ball, my relationship with federal workers, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has been relatively untouched compared to some of the other agencies. So that's why we brought you here today, because I've seen nothing, like it. But I think, what I've really appreciated, you stated, don't worry about the things that you can't control because you can waste so much time and energy in that area of it. So everything that you've stated here has been immensely valuable to our public health community. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, and it's one of those where if it's not the like even jobs that are like we would think are secure, like I'm thinking physicians, like yes, the job is there. However, sometimes it's like the circumstance of which like they can practice might be insecure, right? Like it's all relative and I hate that. And I hate that um right now, like you mentioned, Dr. Banks, it's the wild, wild west. Um, and it's so hard to tell like what will be secure and what won't. And as you're navigating all of this, like the things you can't control, it's so important to like not invalidate that, right? Because a lot of the things you can't control directly impact you, your community, all of these things. Like, please do not invalidate that. Don't forget that. And at the same time, it's like, how can you while all of that stuff is going on, what are the things that you can do to stay as grounded as possible, right? To make it just a little bit easier for you to navigate so you can show up for yourself, your family, your friends, your community type of thing. Now, someone mentioned on here, how do we gain more experience when some jobs require 2 to 3 years of experience? Great question. I would say that experience is in the eye of the beholder. Some people consider experience just professional experience, so paid work experience, and some will count things like academic projects and coursework. So I would suggest that you, before pursuing more experience, depending on what it is, I would sit down and ask yourself, okay, well, how much experience do I have? So take an idea of like maybe do a list or do some of that reflection of, okay, if you're a student now, what projects have I done? Um, Maybe volunteering that you've done. Any of those can, I would say, count as experience, right? Like if somebody else doesn't, great, that's on them. But I would say don't like stop yourself, don't discount yourself before like you even apply. Now, how do you get experience depending on the organization or the position? Um, yes. Anyway, sorry, I'll get to Dr. Schaefer's comment. Sorry, I just distracted. But depending on the position or the organization, if it is like a nonprofit, maybe, or maybe there are nonprofits that do similar work, you could volunteer. Maybe there are courses or certifications that you could take if you have capacity. I would really kind of evaluate like what the experiences you're looking for and then kind of compare it to what you've already done and see if you're underselling yourself. Okay, Dr. Shaver, I would like to add, while government-related jobs may be in limbo, there are openings at nonprofits and local community organizations. Yes. um, tangentially related opportunities. And when you're on the market, say yes to things. You never know what opportunity will open a door for you. Yes. So, selfish example here, but for me, I fell into higher education and it turned out that opened so many doors for me. Now, I'm not saying that every opportunity has to lead to a career change or anything like that, but it's kind of like you never know. When you're looking at a job or position, think about, okay, can I do this? Why am I drawn to this mission or this organization? Why do I know I could do this work? Does this job take care of my basic needs? Very important one, right? Does it have benefits, salary, whatever those qualifications may be for you? And you never know what applying could do. Maybe applying itself is a form of networking, right? Like you never know what that application could lead you. Maybe you do an informational interview, or maybe you do that interview and you learn so much more about the organization. You never know. Yep, Dr. Schaefer, networking. You never know. And that could be reaching out to someone on LinkedIn. That could be if you are involved in any like organizations now, that's networking, right? Is there a link to nonprofit organizations that have an opening? Yes. One of my favorites is if you are in Idaho, here, Idaho Nonprofit Center has an awesome job board right there. I love looking at this for a few reasons, but community data and integration coordinator. Throwing that out there, I see that right now. There's a good amount open. Ooh, nutrition's health partner specialist. Anyway, sorry, I digress. This can be a great one to help kind of see what organizations are out there. Maybe you had no idea that I don't know, I'm looking right now. Global community partners. Personally, I don't know what that is, but like I would look and be like, okay, what do they do? Right? So it could be really good for information gathering. If you see a position, even if you know you're not going to take it, maybe you look at it and you ask yourself, okay, could I do this? Why or why not? Am I interested in looking at more of these positions? Because as you all probably know, a lot of positions in healthcare and public health do not have the same title, right? It could be a lot of things. So sometimes focusing more on what the work the organization does and the actual information in the job description can be very helpful. Great questions, friends. I think maybe we have time for one more.
Absolutely.
Maybe not. Um, I started in a very different public health role I am in now and took every opportunity I was given to gain skills and experience, even if it wasn't exactly what I thought would be perfect. It benefited me in the long run because it rounded me out in my experience. Yep. So, how do I navigate wanting to get clinical experience while in school? Also a great question. I if you send me an email, I'm going to put my email in right now because I don't have time to answer it in this moment, but I can or actually I'll just put that in the resources, some of the clinical opportunities there. So, but yes, thank you all. Dr. Banks, anything else you'd like me to add?
Kelsey, I just want to thank you. I think this has been tremendously helpful. And while you're talking, you actually sparked a thought that I had. I put a link to something within the chat there. And I think Dr. Schaefer, you mentioned this as well, is to think outside of the box. I know that I'll just use this, quick example. Sometime pharmaceutical companies or big pharma has been, vilified and, kind of spoken in the same vein as big tobacco, which they're not. And as you look at this post, I'll put it within, again, the link. Definitely not within the eyes of CMS. They're actually negotiating with pharmaceutical companies right now to reduce drug prices. So, pharmaceutical companies, health insurers, different types of, avenues, there's opportunity for you. And so, just keep everything open. But Kelsey, this has been terrific. I mean, I like all of our CE sessions, but, I love this one. We have to probably take that out of the recording. I don't want any of our other presenters to get jealous, but this was absolutely fabulous. So thank you.
Thank you so much
Thank you.
for the kind words and the opportunity. I mean, if anyone has questions, please send me an email. There's so many resources out there available, and I am just happy to help. So thank you all.
Awesome. All right, guys. Please enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you, everyone. Take care.